Hi, I am retired professional triathlete TJ Tollakson, CEO of Dimond Bikes right here in Des Moines, Iowa. And today, the great debate. Shimano, wait, that's backwards. Shimano versus SRAM, head to head. Here we go. We're gonna take a look at this first from a road and gravel standpoint, and then we'll dive into the tri setup in a subsequent video. Let's go ahead and we'll start with Shimano. So Shimano's long dominated the road scene, especially in the US. Shimano is a Japanese company known for super great engineering, great manufacturing, ability to hold crazy specifications, repeatability, and they've long dominated this sector since they first started making components an extremely long time ago.
Surely you can't be serious.
So let's take a look at the road setup. So this is my personal road bike. You can see it's got Shimano Dura-Ace Di2 2x system. I've got the 9100P power meter. I have the hydraulic shift levers on here. Real quick, this is 9100. Shimano has just announced that they are doing a 9200 series Dura-Ace, which is going to be a little bit different than this. So we'll talk more about what the 9200 looks like than the 91. On the Ultegra side, the current available model is 8000, and they are launching an 8100 series now. So we'll examine what that looks like. So Shimano, really the first big electronic group set. The current formation in Dura-Ace 9100 is wired. So under these hoods, there is a wire that runs into the cable, that runs into this stem that's housed internally. In here, there is a junction box to tie these two together. There is an A-junction box mounted here on the frame, which is really cool. That gives you a charge port, battery signal, lets you micro adjust, that kind of stuff. It's very cool.
Very cool.
Wires run down here under the bottom bracket. Wire runs up to the front derailleur. Another junction in here, and it runs all the way down to the rear derailleur. Plug that guy back in. Runs all the way down to the rear derailleur. It works. The current iteration is fully wired. There's one giant battery that sits right here in the seat tube. It's actually inside the seat post. And the nice thing about the Shimano battery is that it lasts a good 3 months in between charges. So you don't really have to think about it that often.
I keep having this nagging feeling that I've forgotten something.
Hey, if you forgot it, it probably wasn't all that important.
Yeah, I guess.
The new series runs somewhat similar. It still has the battery that will be housed inside the frame. It still has a wire from the front derailleur and a wire from the rear derailleur, but there will no longer be junction boxes. All of that technology will now be in the rear derailleur. The other big news is 9200 Dura-Ace, 8100 Ultegra will now be 12-speed. So the current version is only 11-speed. The new version is going to be 12-speed. And the shifters, there's going to be no wires that run through the bike.
Wires are so ugly.
To get to this point, you're simply going to have a battery, a wire from the front derailleur to the battery, and a wire from the rear derailleur to the battery. That is it. The shifters will use coin cell batteries here under the hoods, and they will shift using Bluetooth technology to send a signal to the derailleur, to the rear derailleur, which will be the master, and that's how it's going to shift. There are not an abundance of road and gravel options available in one by. They do have some Shimano GRX, which is their gravel series, in one by, but they're still very much focused on having a wonderful front derailleur on all their systems. So that's kind of the basics of what Shimano looks like. We'll get into some more of these small comparisons, but now let's take a look at the SRAM. So I pulled back the lever here on the SRAM. So that's how the hood actually pulls back, and it does the same on both of them. It's just a piece of rubber, so if you're ever curious how that works at your bike shop, be curious no more. It's really easy. You're not gonna hurt anything. Just pull it up. And you have access to the bolt that obviously tightens the retaining ring on the handlebars, as well as a coin cell battery. SRAM, this is SRAM Force, which is their lower level line on this gravel bike, this Dimond Carbide, which shameless plug here, but if you didn't know that Dimond made gravel and road bikes, well now you do, and you got a great look at them. So this runs totally wireless, so there's nothing running through here. This is a shifter that pairs to a front derailleur and a rear derailleur. I have a rear derailleur here sitting off the frame right now, so you can see what it looks like. It's really pretty cool because the battery on these sits on each derailleur.
Wow.
So you can see this is just a dummy battery holder right here. I will grab this one and pull it off.
Oh my God, Emma pulled you off.
But it's got a little latch that pulls up, battery comes out. You can see I will hold this in my hand now to put this one in. Clicks in, very secure. And so what's nice is you can carry spare batteries with you, but you can also swap your battery from your front derailleur to your rear derailleur if you're running a 2x system, or you can just carry a spare charged one in your pocket. So SRAM system has an abundance of 1x and 2x systems. Probably the most notable is that SRAM's Axis, so SRAM Force and SRAM Red ETAP Axis, AXS.
Could you repeat that, sir?
Is what this system is called, and it is their newest, their latest and greatest. It uses 12 speeds, and the smallest cog on the SRAM system is a 10, whereas the smallest cog on the Shimano system is an 11. SRAM has their own hub body on the back of a wheel, and that is called XDR. I will show you in just a little bit of what that hub body looks like. Shimano uses a classic Shimano SRAM 1011 speed, which is considered Hyperglide, also abbreviated as HG. All right, we talked about the difference in cassettes and the hub bodies, and here you can see it on these two wheels. This is a standard Shimano Hyperglide. It has the big, deep splines all the way through, probably what you're familiar seeing on a regular basis. 10-speed compatible if you put on this little spacer. Can't even get that spacer off now. There's a spacer on there for 10-speed. Take the spacer off, and it works with 11 speed. If you need to go to 12 speed on Shimano's new system, it is also going to use this same Hyperglide. If you have a SRAM 12 speed, it uses its own hub body called XDR. It has little tiny ridges right here, and then it threads on. So the cassette doesn't thread from the top with the top cap, it threads the entire thing on right here. So it locks into place, threads onto the hub body. What's cool are red crown hubs that you see here. They have swappable free hub bodies, so you can change from Shimano to SRAM without needing to rebuild your wheel. Pretty cool stuff.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So SRAM, XDR, Shimano, HG for the hub bodies. SRAM down to a 10-tooth cog in the back, Shimano down to an 11. I did a video on 1-buys and why that makes a big difference with the SRAM versus Shimano. If you haven't seen that, you can check that out. So the Shimano system, this is an 1134 cassette, which is the max number of teeth that the Ultegra or the new Dura Ace will hold. So you can now get an 1134 cassette because all the derailleurs will hold 1136. SRAM, on the other hand, they do a little bit bigger one. SRAM's is a 1036. So this is what the SRAM does, and they have a new system called Explorer, and the SRAM Explorer goes all the way to a 1044 on a cassette. So you do have a lot of options, and that will work road or gravel bike, whatever you want to do. So SRAM is winning the war on wide range of gears, right? If you look at a 10 tooth and a 44 or a 10 and even the 36 that's here. It's a much wider gear range than the 1134. So what advantages does Shimano have?
Good question, good question.
Shimano has their reliability and their performance. And so especially when we want to talk about front derailleur performance, I have one personal anecdote. We had some bad pins on a SRAM front chainring, and we couldn't get the SRAM front derailleur to shift it whatsoever. I simply put the Shimano front derailleur on the SRAM ring, boom, shifted. So I will say that the Shimano front derailleur system far superior to the SRAM front derailleur system. But let's think again, do we really need the front derailleur? Which again would lead me to say that I'm a big proponent right now of SRAM's one-by systems. I really was hoping that Shimano was going to do more with the one-by system on these new series, but we don't have it yet. One of the cool new features Shimano has, so you see here, this is the integrated power meter on the Dura Ace model, but they just announced the 8100 series Ultegra will also have an integrated power meter. So that's cool. It's going to come at a little bit lower price. This is very nice because it is crank arm based, so it is left and right independent. So there are strain gauges on both crank arms. If we take a look at the SRAM system, this is what a SRAM 2x integrated power meter looks like. SRAM acquired Quark several years ago, and so their latest products all have really cool integrated power meters. They kind of win in this category for me. Where they lose on the power meter that Shimano has the advantage is the left-right specific. This is nice because it's in your Spider, but it's only measuring on one single side. Now it's in the Spider, so it does have an algorithm to calculate when you are using your left foot versus your right foot, but it is, all the strain gauges are on one side of the bike, whereas strain gauges here are on two sides of the bike. So that's really cool. We also have this Aero power meter for one-by systems from SRAM. This bad boy is really sweet. It's super, super light. It weighs hardly anything more than the one without the power meter. I give a slight advantage in the power meter department to SRAM for their knowledge with Quark, their pairings with Quark, and the sleek integration of what they're doing. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what's currently being used on the Shimano system and kind of where it's going in the future. So right now, the brains of the Di2 are really in this box right here called an A junction. And so this A junction, you can see this here on my bike, has a charge port and a small button to let you enter into micro shift modes if you want to make micro adjustments to your derailleur.
The Micro Machine Man here presenting the genuine, original, colossally collectible, most miniature replicas of the real thing.
You can do that through this brain and then using your shifters to do small adjustments right or left. It's a really nice feature on there. However, it does make it necessary to wire all the way through the bike, so there's a lot of wires. Personally, I have a friend who has an Ultegra Di2 system who's had a few problems because every cable is internal on this setup, that traveling with your bike then becomes a lot more problematic when you're trying to take your handlebars off and put them back on. It's very easy to pinch a cable as you're trying to route everything in here.
Right, that's bad. Okay.
Shimano, in my opinion, also wins when we're talking about accuracy, crispness, and effectiveness of the shifting. Those who are true Shimano believers would tell you the same thing, that there is nothing that shifts quite like Dura Ace Di2. So my road bike, where I feel the shifting is more important, is currently set up with the Dura Ace. My gravel bike, which I believe shifting is not quite as important, I'm a much bigger fan of the SRAM. Overall, I see merits to both. If I had to say which one is more future-proof right now, I'd say that leads to the SRAM. Having that 10-tooth cog on the bottom of the cassette, wow.
Wow.
That's just absolutely brilliant for me, plus the added gear range, plus their Explorer series. I love everything that SRAM is doing in terms of pushing the envelope, technology forward, looking for great things. That's all for today. Doesn't matter whether you're riding SRAM or Shimano, get out there and ride your bike. Tune in next week to find out the difference of SRAM versus Shimano on the tri-bike scene. So we're gonna look at what it looks like set up SRAM and Shimano on the tri-bike.